Merry Christmas! The ugly sweater has been found. I had a little hat that I was going to wear with it. But it's kind of uncomfortable, so I'm not going to bother. Yesterday, I had told you, I did the tag, the 15 yarn YouTuber tag, and I never did finish the question about editing programs. I also use an MP4 converter because since I use my movie, many times it turns into the .mov, and you've got to convert that to an MP4. And then I also use Handbrake. So that's what I use for that. Today I thought I would tell you about chainette. Someone had asked about it, what a chainette yarn is. And I have crocheted a chainette. And basically what a chainette is typically a yarn that has been knitted, machine knitted into an I-cord which has a hollow opening, down the center. And that's what you do when you're knitting an I-cord. When you crochet an I-cord, it's a little different, but they do have some of the same personalities. One of those is you have a lot of elasticity in that yarn. And then also when you're yarning with it, you can see it adds a lot of bulk to the yarn so that it's a little loftier, so that like if you're using a number 4, many times it'll mimic a number 5, bulky. And then when you do crochet knit with it, it really brings out the stitch definition very strongly. But the other thing that it does when you block it is these chains will open up and you will see a whole different texture with it. So that's what a chainette yarn does, and typically that is exactly it resembles an I-cord, and you can use any fiber to make a chainette yarn, but it basically tells you that when you use merino alpaca, it brings a whole different tactile feel and pleasure and really opens up whatever you're working with. So it is a yarn that is lightweight, has great stitch definition, added elasticity, and the construction does a few things. Adds girth to the art with that yarn without the typical weight because of its hollow core. So like I said, it mimics a heftier yarn, but you don't get that heavy feel to the yarn. So it's a little lighter. It creates some additional stretch because, as you can see, the I-cord is really stretchy. Crochet I-cords are a little different, and I did do an crocheted because I didn't have my double pointed needles to knit one. But I prefer to knit them than to crochet, because typically what you do when you crochet it to make a chainette is you'll chain 3, you go into that second loop, pull up a loop, then go into third, pull up a loop, and then you'll drop the last 2 loops, but you want to hold on to them because you will chain 1 with that first, then you'll put the second loop back on, chain 1, and then you'll put the third loop back onto your hook, chain 1, and then you'll start all over again. You'll drop those last 2, you want to hold on to them. So, it's an interesting way to make chainette. It really works well with what's called short stapled yarns. Merino is a short staple, and staple generally talks about the length of the animal hair. Merino is typically about this to this long, so that when you're pulling, if you're using a roving yarn that is merino and you're pulling it, you'll get to a point that you cannot pull when you're drafting any further because the hairs slide past each other because they are short staple. And it reduces a lot of the pilling that you see with just plain single plies or double plies, just because of the way that the chain locks in those fibers. And then when you block it up, those chains open up and it just creates a whole different looking project. It's very interesting the way that it does with the textile. I'm going to get a drink here. December the 25th is typically the day that you get the 12 days of Christmas. It goes through January into the 6th, which is the Epiphany, or what is called Old World Christmas. And you know this song, The 12 Days of Christmas? Well, there's a myth, urban legend, lore that goes along with that, and I'm going to read that to you today instead of what intonation this week. The 12 Days of Christmas, what it really means. And this is courtesy of Bill Hall, the PA Visitors Network. Since we're still in the middle of the 12 Days of Christmas, that carol has always baffled me. What in the world do leaping lords, French hens, swimming swans, and especially the partridge who won't come out of the pear tree have to do with Christmas? This week I found out. From 1558 until 1829, Roman Catholics in England were not permitted to practice their faith openly. Someone during that era wrote this carol as a catechism song for young Catholics. It has two levels of meaning, the surface meaning plus a hidden meaning, known only to members of their church. Each element in the carol has a code word for a religious reality which the children could remember. The partridge in a pear tree was Jesus Christ. 2 turtle doves were the Old and New Testaments. 3 French hens stood for faith, hope, and love. The 4 calling birds were the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The 5 golden rings recalled the Torah or law, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The 6 geese a-laying stood for the 6 days of creation. 7 swans a-swimming represented the sevenfold gifts of the Holy Spirit: prophecy, serving, teaching, exhortation, contribution, leadership, and mercy. The 8 maids a-milking were the 8 Beatitudes. 9 ladies dancing were the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The 10 lords a-leaping were the 10 commandments. The 11 pipers piping stood for 11 faithful disciples. The 12 drummers drumming symbolized the 12 points of belief in the Apostles' Creed. So there is your history for today. This knowledge was shared with me, and I found it interesting and enlightening, and now I know how that strange song became a Christmas carol. So pass it on if you wish. Merry 12 Days of Christmas, everyone. That's a lot of words to read. Now, Snopes says that whole thing is urban legend. It's false. Whatever. I don't care. It's a nice sentiment, and I like it, so I read it to you. Believe or not believe, that is your choice. Okay, everybody, I hope you have had a great holiday, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.